Welcome to Nightmare Castle Rush.
7K Dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be looking at the Castle Rush Nightmare for Dellons. I'm running the Reflect team first, and this is sped up by 1.5 times. And I just want to say that I'm very disappointed that Castle Rush has turned into a Siege Defense Part 2. Okay, so this is basically the team. I think most of you probably have seen it in other channels. I never really properly gave them a thorough look, so I just looked at the team, gave some of the equipment which I thought could be useful, and then I just ran with it. So my score isn't as ideal as the other runs elsewhere, which probably can hit about 200,000. As you saw in the opening, I only got about 70 or 67,000, which is really not ideal. So I'll explain about the heroes builds later on, but something you need to take note is that when the shield from Rook is up, there will be no damage done onto the enemies themselves. So the only damage that you see being accumulated will be the reflected damage from Jave, Nurcha and Evan. And the tricky thing about this is that while you want them to survive, you also need them to have lower defense, because if you want to get a very high reflected damage, you need the enemies to do more damage to you, and in that case, you will need to sacrifice some of their defense. So later on, when I explain the heroes' equipment, I'm going to also recommend you what is better as compared to what I gave over here. And over here, this run is basically just to give you a rough idea of how things should go, even though they are not equipped in the best way. So as you can see here, the main thing is shielding up with Evan when HP is converted to 1, and also healing with Hyong. Hyong's top skill is also particularly good because it reduces the enemy's physical attack by 25% if I'm not wrong. And beyond that, I'm just really letting my other heroes just use their skills as and when, just to pass a bit of time, instead of letting all the debuffs just go to waste over time. Because if you don't queue for any skills, then all the speed attacks will happen and the debuffs will go down very quickly, and your skill cooldown may not be able to keep up. So having skills used in between is actually to delay time and also to help you ready your skill effectively. And over here, unfortunately both my heroes die, but Karin is able to revive both of them. So you need to time all these properly, make sure, hopefully you get a situation whereby you have a lot of heroes that die and then Karin can revive them simultaneously. And you also realize one thing is that I didn't employ the use of a friend unit. So in that case, if I were to have a friend unit, I think the score would also be better. Because the friend unit, for example, if you hire someone with a mythical Evan, that will help so much. So I think at this point you kind of see that I'm just really focusing on Hyong's skill and also on Karin's skill whenever HP is running low. In fact, if you leave them to use auto skill, Karin and Hyong will also prioritize healing when your allies' HP have fallen below half. And you see that I'm also casting Evan's skill. The reason for this is because I have Isabella's Vigor on him, so whenever he uses a skill, he will heal up by a good amount, and that's why I'm also using his skills along the way. So another setup for this is that Hyong is placed at the back with 4 heroes in front. The reason for that is because it boosts Hyong's magic attack by a huge amount, and that huge amount will come into play when she tries to heal your team, because she has healing over time. So this healing over time is going to be very beneficial over 2 or 3 turns. If you increase her magic attack to a very high amount, then you can almost be sure that your team will be healed very generously. Again, I will talk more about the ideal build in the equipment and hero build section. I will also put some links to other users' videos so that you guys can take a look at how they fare. And yeah, I'm just gonna say that they have much better runs. I usually don't really care about Jave's attacks, and then I will revive using Karin wherever necessary. The only problem comes when all my skills are not ready, and I guess that is also partially my fault because I never really equipped them properly, such as with PvE skill cooldown, which will make a huge difference in this case because it reduces cooldown by 20%.
Cease to exist. Meet your
I think my focus here was primarily on the defense, the block side. So reflected damage is not high, and my skills weren't cooldown fast enough. So all these problems kind of led to a very low score, as you can see. However, I did survive throughout this whole run, so I don't think survival is a very big issue.
Restore, rise.
cease to exist.
You may get one casualty, for example from Nerja, because she is the slightly frail one, and towards the end of the match at the 2-minute mark onwards, Dellons will do huge damage and will definitely one-hit KO your heroes. So that is the part whereby, you know, even if you have the best setup, they will still die, your units. What you can do is really just to heal up as much as you can and hold on. Of course, that said, I'm showing you guys another team setup later on. This one is something that I was just playing around and thinking of myself. And finally, we end the battle. I got about 89,000, of course. My real score is 68,000, which is not very high at all. I've seen people getting 200,000 in score for one run with the Reflect team. So on to hero builds. I've given Hayoung lethal rate and HP. Lethal rate or whatever substat doesn't matter. What matters most is giving her very good weapons, because this helps to increase her attack by a lot. Increasing her attack helps her healing, and this overall helps your team over time. So you can see that her jewels, I've given her blue jewels. You can give her red jewels instead to increase her magic attack, and this will also increase her healing to a much greater extent. So recovery skill is definitely a must. For block rate and damage reduction from block, you can choose to change these two to PvE magic attack increase and PvE skill cooldown, which I think are more important than blocking. Okay. For her trait, she should have silence resist, because after all, you really need to spam her skills. She cannot be silenced. If she doesn't heal on time, you are pretty much dead. And for her accessory, you may want to look into evasion as a substat or HP as a substat. Next, we have Karin. As you can see, I've also given her very good weapons. Of course, in this case, they are PvP weapons. If you can give her PvE weapons, even better. Her PvE armor should be Myth Awakened to give her more HP shields every turn. And another thing would be the silence resist trait. I think that will help her a lot. Again, the same thing as Hayoung, you can give her red jewels instead. Red jewels such as recovery skill, skill cooldown, and magic attack increase. I think these will increase her healing to a much better extent. Her single target healing is particularly very good for heroes who have low health. And for her accessory, you can use the HP as a substat, HP plus 14%. That will give her much more bulk. Next, we have Nerja. For Nerja, her weapons don't matter at all. You should actually also give her Myth armor, otherwise just these are fine, Stormwing armor. For her jewels, try to keep them to green jewels, because blue jewels increase her defense and you don't want her to have too high defense. So green jewels are much better. You can give her block rate, of course, but if you don't want to give her block rate, then I think this setup that I have right here is okay. Basically, the focus is for green jewels to be on her so that she gets a little more HP. Same thing for her accessory, you can give her Willful Ring and HP increase for more bulk. Next, for Jave, weapons don't matter as well, armor matters. I've given him double Stormwing armor. Again, I'm not too sure if giving him Myth armor is actually a good thing, because it adds on to his defense and that means you reflect less damage. Okay, so that's something to just consider. See how your team fares in the run itself, then decide if you want to Myth Awaken the armor or not. For jewels, green jewels preferably, okay, because red jewels don't really matter, and blue jewels increases his defense, so you get lesser reflected damage as I mentioned earlier. So the accessory I've given him here is the preferred one, and unfortunately I've used up 4 HP accessories and I still couldn't get a level 5 accessory, so I'm stuck with this. So for his jewels, you see that I've given him chance to survive on 1 HP, and this is a very good jewel for your front line, especially so that they can reflect a bit more damage at 1 HP. And lastly, for Evan, I actually am really lazy to unequip him entirely, so I'm using my PvP setup, which obviously isn't the most recommended. So in this case, you may want to give him PvE weapons to increase his damage output, because he is actually the heaviest hitter on the team. And then for his armor, Myth HP armor is the best one, of course PvE ones. And then also the jewels, green jewels are preferred. So try to give him PvE status resist, because he also cannot be silenced. He needs to continuously put up his shields, which means skill cooldown is possibly one of the more important jewels as well. You can also give him PvE crit and lethal damage, because he is after all the main damage dealer here, and then also chance to survive on 1 HP. So my jewel setup is kind of totally wrong in a way. I focus mainly for PvP because I didn't really want to unequip too much. And for his accessory, of course, HP as a substat is also good. So these are my masteries for my Reflect team. Hopefully it will help you. And next we will move on to my second team, which I actually got more damage out of, surprisingly. So I'm using Truth here. The reason why I'm using Truth as my DPS is because for her single target, she will always target Rook, no matter what. So she won't behave like Shane and Velika, who will target Dellons. Okay, the reason why is because her single target skill will target the hero, the enemy with the highest defense, and that will be Rook. And her other skill is a 3 target skill, so this fits perfectly in the situation and will definitely get you some damage in a shorter period of time. However, the only problem here is that the entire team's bulk is slightly lower, which means they do have a very high chance of getting killed in just a few skills.
I summon thee. Slash the wind and purify enemies!
As you can see here, if your timing of your skill is not very good, whereby Dellons converts your HP to 1 and you don't have healing or shields ready to be used, you are pretty much dead. And in this case, within the first minute or so, my Lina is already down. So unfortunately over here, my Truth's attack is being blocked, but she does about 7.7 thousand. Okay, later on you will see another case whereby it doesn't get blocked and you can compare the damage output. So this is a 3 target skill. It decreases counter rate of the enemies, which is also beneficial. Unfortunately, it completely gets blocked as well, which is bad. And the point of Tara here is really to get rid of the shields once Rook has cast them. Okay, after you have removed the shields, you need to cast Rachel's Phoenix to increase the damage you can do onto the enemies. So over here, Truth gives you about 12.5 on her Awaken skill. I think that's pretty good. So now it's really about just hanging in there. I mean, after all, you see that I don't really have any more healing capabilities, so I'm really left to tank the damage. And like I said, your team is gonna be pretty frail. So Tara dies here, which means if Rook casts his shield, I'm not able to remove it anymore. So here Truth lands her single target, it does about 28,000. You can see that that is a significant amount of damage. So imagine if she actually didn't get blocked in the first time. My score would have increased by a further 21,000 or so. And because of Truth's long skill cooldown, I think at the most you can only use 2 of her single target skills, but that should be enough for you, to get a good score if you don't get blocked. I would love to just use Zahara or Kagura to reduce enemy block rate, but Evan's shields are just way too important at this point, and he is another source of reflect, so you can get some damage off onto the enemies when Rook's shield is up after Tara is down. And basically that's just the strategy because I'm about to die very soon. Pretty much dead here. But you can compare the overall damage later. And of course, it's not a very fair comparison because my equipment for this team, I'm more certain. Whereas compared to the Reflect team earlier on, for that one I wasn't 100% on the ball. And I wasn't 100% ready for that team. So I did a bit more damage for this team. However, I'm sure you can push it a little higher if you don't get too much block. So for Truth, double lethal, double HP, lethal rate, physical attack and crit damage, PvE ones. And of course, I actually have the Wilfering and Isabella's Evil Eye on her, but I'm not sure if it actually works. And for her traits, I actually have increased damage on defensive because I want to do more damage to Rook. So the point is really just to capture the damage from Rook and hopefully it translates well into your score. Truth herself has 30% crit increase on her passive, so along with one trait and Lina you can get 100% crit, so everything else is meant to be pumped into lethal rate instead. Next we have Tara, double HP and also very defensive. So over here it is okay to be defensive because there's no reflect or whatsoever. Basically silence resist because you don't want her to be silenced and you cannot get rid of shields on time. And over here I've given her height for 7 turns. I think it's pretty useful. It doesn't, leave her with too much damage early on. And in case she does receive too much damage, you can always use her Awaken skill to heal her back completely. And for Lina, 1 crit and 1 lethal. Of course, PvE weapons would be better to boost her magic attack so that she heals more, if she does survive, of course. So it's preferable to give her Myth Awaken armor, definitely. Recovery skill, status effect resist and increase awakening gauge. I would really love to actually use her awakening skill so that Truth does more damage, but I just can't find the chance to, and I'm very afraid that if I spend 1 turn to use that certain skill, then things may happen later on and my team will still die without me doing too much damage. So that's the only thing I'm afraid about. I've given her evasion here and I think that will be the best accessory substat for her so that she can try to evade some attacks and not die too soon. For Evan, same build as my PvP setup except the accessory, whereby I've given him the HP increase. So beyond that, everything else is not catered for PvE at all. And finally for Rachel's, very simple setup, HP and full on block and of course increase awakening gauge so that she gets her lethal rate and lethal damage buff up, and this will help your Truth a lot. I've given the reduced fixed damage accessory and I think it can help a little bit, so why not. And finally, these are my masteries. More offensive base for sure, and remember you want to increase lethal rate and not crit rate for Truth. So that were my 2 teams. I hope the video helped you and I will try to make a better team and better setup for the next few Castle Rush runs. Hopefully things don't change too much because we never know what the enemies are gonna have. Stay tuned for more guys, thank you so much and see you!